If somebody says, I want ownership, let's also be clear about what ownership entails. And a lot of times I think people say this and they want all the upside with none of the risk. I'm Michael Mogill, founder and CEO of Crisp, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. Crisp started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer.
This is Jessica, Head of Coaching Strategy at Crisp, and today we're flipping the script for another special edition episode to get Michael's take on the difference between being a great employee and demonstrating ownership potential, establishing a culture that rewards performance rather than just longevity, and how to break the cycle of delay when an employee clearly needs to be let go.
It will never be easier than it is today to make the decision you know you need to make.
That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. All right, welcome back to another AMMA.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, we were actually just sitting here talking about your revised calendar for the 2026 year. We've made some changes since we've gone into the year, and you have very important meetings now at the end of every day.
Oh yeah, I'm all about the younger generation now. So
It's one way to put it.
After a decade plus of coaching law firm owners, I've now shifted my focus to coaching a 7-year-old, which is our daughter. So this is actually probably my favorite part of the day when I get home and we call it like training with daddy.
Daddy training time. It's
training.
On the calendar.
That's what it is, right? So, and I like I like to call it training because really every skill that somebody develops is through practice. So one of the things that we started off initially was just a difficulty to focus. This was me growing up as a kid. Absolutely. Like I'd be looking around like, why can't he focus, right? Now I see it as a superpower, but the reality of it is that who teaches you to focus? Like if focus is a skill, which I believe it is,
yes, then
if you never learn how to do it, then you're not going to be very good at it, right? And that can be very discouraging and that can impact your confidence and so on. So with her, this is something that we've worked on. And, then she tells me, she comes home one day, she's like, I hate math, right? I hate math. And I'm like, okay, well, let's think about that. Like, why do we hate math? We hate math because it's difficult or we're struggling with something. Like it's no different than, generally people don't like the things that they struggle with and they tend to like the things that come naturally to them or the things they're very good at. And if it doesn't come naturally to you, you can still be very good at it. So essentially what we worked on over the weekend was on a lot of different number patterns, right? I like draw out bunch of different patterns. She'd have to kind of figure it out. Does it go by 2, by 3, by 1, by 4, by 5? And, we just worked and drilled these, through the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And I have my version of child abuse.
Yeah,
right?
We can call it that.
Where if she gets an answer wrong, because the big thing we were focusing on is I told her, I don't care so much if you're wrong, but we do have a rule. This is like my one rule when we started all this is that we're never going to give up and we're always going to try. Okay? Because you can be wrong, but if you keep going, then you can eventually be right. So when she gets to a place where if she's wrong or she doesn't like check her work before presenting it, she's got to do some jumping jacks. 10 jumping jacks. And this is actually really great if we're struggling to focus because if you can exhaust the body,
yes,
right, then you kind of free up the mind.
Yes.
So a lot of times somebody is like fidgeting and like it's just because their body, you have like so much energy, you need to get that energy out. And this is why I'm a big fan of like exercise. Like let's do some jumping jacks or jump on a trampoline. Let's just do something. Let's get that energy out before we start working together. And I think it was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. So we've been working on these number patterns for really probably 3-4 days at this point. And when we started, it was just like ground zero. Like it was just not in a good place. I'm like, whoa, like we got a lot of work to do here. And she didn't feel confident at all. And I present numbers and all she would see was just, it made no sense to her whatsoever.
Right.
And now 4 days in, I actually wrote down all the different patterns she had to kind of fill in the blank. I gave her the sheet to work on. She's like, I'm done. I'm like, wait a second, hold on, that was too fast. Are you sure? Like, you just double check your work, make sure all the patterns line up, make sure that they're accurate, because I'll come and check them. And if you're right, I got a special treat for you. She's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, are you sure? Right? Because even one is wrong, then you don't,
no treat.
No treat. and I'm checking through it. First line's right, second line's right, third line's right, fourth line's right, fifth line's right. I'll tell you what, last year, Chris, we hit the highest revenue that we have in our entire history since 2012. I was pretty happy about that. I was even happier last night when she got all those number patterns right. I probably was more excited than she was, but then she was pretty proud of herself too. She felt great.
She came running down the stairs. Yeah, she was so happy.
Now here's the twist on that number pattern. What I ended up doing was, this was the very first assignment that we worked on the first day that we started our training together, where she just didn't know the patterns, didn't really understand, and was getting every single one wrong. And I basically copied those same patterns, put it on a blank sheet of paper. So what she ended up doing was the very thing that she was struggling with at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that is come full circle. So that's one thing. We continue to work on, other concepts. But I told her, I'm like, girl, you stick with me, you're going to be a weapon, right? Like, you're going to show up to class, you're going to be dangerous. I think I'm like, whoa, where did this girl learn this stuff? And more importantly, you're going to feel good. You're going to feel confident in your ability to learn new things and learn new concepts. And whether it's math or reading or writing or whatever it is, it's less important what it is and just the confidence that you have in your ability to learn and develop new skills, right? Growth mindset. So you don't say, I hate this. It's just like, okay, well, right now I'm struggling with this because I haven't practiced it enough. And if you look at this, you can extend this into even the professional space, where if you look at somebody who's really successful, chances are the difference between you and them is just that they have better judgment than you, meaning that they have made a series of decisions and you've made a series of decisions, and their decisions have kind of led them closer to where they wanted to go, and perhaps yours are not yet. And you can develop that skill. Like, judgment is a skill, decision making is a skill. We were watching this thing on TikTok last night, and there was another concept. I messaged a buddy of mine because we're both training for triathlon, and I told him, I've become convinced that when it comes to triathlon, like bike, run, swim, it has less to do with someone's athletic ability or their genetics or anything like that, and more to do with the amount of time they're able to dedicate to this, to practice. You become a better swimmer by swimming more. You become a better runner by running more. You become a better cyclist by cycling more, right? And then you continue to fine-tune your technique. So when you see somebody who's at a place that you're not, and you look at them, it's not that they have any special powers or special abilities. They just have different habits, and they've probably been practicing at it longer than you have. That's all it is. And if you can look at it and say, hey, this person's flesh and bone, and so am I, then you, instead of envying them, you can appreciate the dedication that's often been required for them to get to where they are, but you also can acknowledge that you can get there too. That's kind of the lesson I want to pass down to our girls, in the sense that you can really do anything.
Yes.
Anything you actually, that you want, if you dedicate yourself to it.
Totally.
100% you can do anything.
Yes.
You want to be an astronaut? Again, so long as there's some crazy limitation, like maybe you're not going to play in the NBA, maybe you're playing the WNBA, right? But the reality of it is, you can develop pretty much any skill, and I believe you can become the top 1% in the world at pretty much anything if you dedicate yourself fully to it.
Yes.
So anyway, I hope that answers your question. That wasn't even a question.
Being said, that is Michael's new schedule on the daily basis now.
I know. I'm checking my watch. I'm I got to go in a couple hours.
I've never seen you be so punctual to something.
Because I'm pumped, because I get home and I'm like, are you ready for today? I've started to figure out, I'm going to gamify the whole thing. We're going to give out tokens that you can redeem for prizes. If you save up a certain number of tokens, you can get bigger prizes. And if you save up even more tokens, you get a yes day with me, where we will go and essentially I'll spend the day with her, and I say yes to everything. You want to go eat ice cream, you want to go here, you want to do whatever, but a yes day, you got to bank 3-4 weeks of tokens, right? So we're also trying to teach them delayed gratification, right? Kind of marshmallow test them. So anyway, I digress, but this is the AMMA. Thank you guys for tuning in. We were off to a great start in this 2026 new year. Okay, you can't say Happy New Year anymore. It's too
no,
too late for that.
A month in now.
But we can answer some questions. So you guys submit questions. You text us at 404-531-7691. Jessica compiles the questions. We answer them on the show. We also do other types of episodes, like our traditional podcast interviews. We bring on a guest, ask them questions. It's a podcast. And then we've got the encore editions. We bring back some of the most popular episodes. We've got an incredible lineup so far this season. I'm very, very excited for it. And with that, Jessica, let's get going. What do we got?
Let's jump right in. So question number 1. Hey, Michael, I own a family law firm and have an attorney who's been with me for 6 years. She does decent work, but recently she's been getting upset that she's not being promoted to partner and receiving equity. Every review, she asks about advancement, and when I try to explain that partnership requires true ownership and leadership beyond just casework, she gets defensive and says I'm moving the goalpost. She genuinely believes that being great at casework should automatically lead to partnership. I want to have a direct conversation with her, but I also don't want to demoralize her. Am I in the wrong here? Should I just promote her?
I mean, should you just give somebody equity in your firm just because they feel like, they deserve it?
Absolutely not.
I mean, absolutely not, right? But at the same time, I look at the type of situation in the sense of someone saying you're moving the goalposts. Have you created a certain expectation, or that perhaps may not be aligned with what, like, maybe this person feels a certain way or thinks a certain way that's not in line with what you feel? Or have you even clarified what that partner track looks like? Do people know what they need to do in order to be able to get there? Or do they think, if I just work really hard and I'm at the firm a long time and I produce great work, right, and I generate tons of money, that I will eventually be promoted to partner?
Right.
And that becomes very subjective. Okay, well, then how hard do you have to work? For how long do you have to work? And, generate what kind of revenue for the firm? Like essentially at what point, right?
Right. Yeah.
Is it after $1 million? Is it after 50 million? Is it after 100 million?
Yeah.
Right? A year or 10 years or 20 years? Do you even want to bring on additional equity partners? Is that the way to grow in the firm? Or are there other ways to be able to earn income? Is somebody's goal to be able to become an equity partner, or are they just looking at ways to be able to make more money? Like, could you do a profit share as opposed to, an equity split? Or is this kind of the traditional idea that came over from another law firm? They think that if I work hard and I stay long enough, then I'll eventually become a partner. And this is kind of in their mind as like, this is how I advance, right? I start as this, an individual contributor, then I become a manager, then I become a director, then I become a VP, et cetera,
ladder.
Right?
Yeah.
We climb this ladder. I think it would be helpful to at least define, if there is a partnership track, what that looks like and what somebody has to do in order to get there. And then at the same time, also, if somebody says, okay, I want ownership, okay, let's also be clear about what ownership entails. And a lot of times I think people say this and they want all the upside with none of the risk, right? They don't want the downside. True ownership is actual risk, right? If somebody wants to buy in, and what that means is that they put their own money in, percentage equity, and the only way that they make money is if the business grows and is more profitable. And in the event that it isn't, they don't make any money.
Right.
Like, no thanks, right? I'll stick with the consistent salary that I get every single 2 weeks, right? But that's what ownership is. Like, we have to make sure that if we're talking about true could there's an alignment on the downside as well, right? You don't just get all the upside and none of the downside. It's like, okay, you can get the upside and could be outsized returns, but in the event that things don't go well, we all feel the pain and we all got to have some skin in the game. So it's like everybody wants to be an owner until it's time to do a thing like what owners do, right? It's like Eric Thomas says, everyone wants to be a beast until it's time to hunt. I would look at this and say, I think you got to, if there is a partnership track, to clearly define what that is and really just level set expectations. Because the worst thing is if somebody believes that they are entitled to something or they're deserving of something and you don't feel that that's the case, then it's just going to, you're going to create a lot of resentment and a lot of misalignment, and that's not good for anybody.
Yeah, she may feel that you're stringing her along. So, all right, question number 2. I need some help with a tricky situation I got into recently. I just promoted an attorney on the team who's been with us for a little under a year, but has been absolutely exceptional in terms of the value he provides. He is probably one of the best, if not the best hire I've made in the last decade. The problem is that I am now dealing with resentment from other attorneys who think they deserved it more and they've been here longer. The person I promoted shows initiative, brings solutions, and honestly just makes everyone around him better. The team sees it as unfair. I see it as promoting excellence. How would you get your team to understand that?
Well, so it's your law firm, right?
Sure hope so.
Okay. First and foremost, and this might be a controversial take, but you really don't owe anybody an explanation for anything that you do in your own business. So long as everybody is being paid and you own 100% of your business, you get to do whatever you want. I mean, it's your business, right?
Correct.
So if you decide you want to promote someone and someone doesn't like that, you can still do that. Now, is that the right thing to do? I mean, that's a different conversation. And if people are looking at that and they're kind of resenting it, I would look at it more so, are you being fair? And to me, what fair means is that you were providing essentially, if someone does X, Y, right? X, Y, Z, whatever, then they get rewarded ABC no matter who that is, right? That is not like specific to one individual, meaning that if they were to do the same things and generate the same output and perform in the same way, that they would also be offered opportunities.
Right.
I like that better in the sense that if they see someone like, well, why is this person making this much money? And you can say, well, guess what? When you're accountable for $50 million of annual revenue, you want to take that on, then you'll make this amount of money.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then they should kind of turn around and go back to the hole. But you have to be able to be very clear about that and saying, okay, like here's what they're accountable for. And if you are willing to step up and be accountable for those things and demonstrate continuous performance over time, et cetera, then you can get opportunities like that too. But I think that's a better approach, that you can always clearly explain a decision that you're making. right? And then people can see it. It doesn't mean they're going to like it, but they will look at it more from a meritocracy standpoint in terms of like, okay, well, this person is performing at this level. You basically have like, high results, special privileges, those sort of things, right? There's a reason that players on professional football teams and sports teams get paid different amounts of money. There's a reason why a starting quarterback in the NFL can make a multi-8-figure annual salary, right? And it's because there's not a whole lot of starting quarterback like caliber people in the world that can play at that level. And also it tends to be in many cases the most important player on the entire team. That if they are phenomenal and world class, that team can win a Super Bowl. And if they're like B, T, C tier, then it's going to be very difficult for them to do so. In fact, it might be impossible.
Right.
So it's the same thing. I mean, I'm sure the players in the locker room know, okay, this person's making way more money than me.
Of course they know.
Okay, well, they're way more valuable than you.
Yes.
To be totally honest. And if you were as valuable, and it could be in different ways, right? Value could be on the field performance. Sometimes there's value, like you look at Lewis Hamilton in F1. They brought him on Ferrari. Like he's by far one of the highest paid drivers in Formula One. But this past season was probably not the highest performing driver, not even close.
Right.
However, his name, his brand, like what that association does for Ferrari, what it does in merch sales, et cetera, more than exceeds what they're paying him. Otherwise, they wouldn't pay him that.
Correct.
So I think it's just an understanding of, okay, well, there's a different amount of value that different people bring, and they should be compensated in alignment to the value they provide.
Absolutely. And really iterating to the other people who may seem resentful, like heavy lies the crown. It's not just all fun and games. All right, question number 3. Michael, I'm a PI attorney in Texas. I have a team of 7, including 2 other associates. I've known for about 6 months now that one of our associates isn't working out, but I keep putting off the conversation. I tell myself I've given them time to improve, but honestly, I'm dreading the conversation and I'm worried about what to do with their caseload if I terminate them. I can feel the tensions rising on the team, but it's not as simple as they think. I know I can't put it off forever, but I also can't seem to pull the trigger. What would you do? Everyone's been here.
I mean, it's from the outside looking in, it's an easy, simple decision, right? But from the inside looking out, it's not always as complicated. Like somebody from the outside is always going to say, yeah, I mean, you got to let him go. Like,
right.
Pretty simple, right? But then internally you're like, okay, well, what happens when I let him go? Now I've got to somehow distribute this caseload. Like other people are going to get spread thin. That's going to create stress and anxiety for them. There's going to be probably some collateral damage there. They're going to leave, right? Now we have to find somebody new. There's the time it takes to source. There's the time it takes to actually find and hire somebody. Then the time that you actually have to ramp them and onboard them and so on. And it can impact a lot of different things.
Also client relationships. Yeah.
It could carry a lot of impact in the firm. And the way I would look at it is I would weigh the downside of what happens if we let them go. What's the downside of that? Like the upside is you probably clear out, low performers and the team elevates. And you want to make sure the downside doesn't exceed the upside. Then you look at it also from the standpoint of what's the downside of keeping them around, right? Because if resentment builds, you may have an even bigger problem on your hands, right? Where you're tolerating low performance and that actually degrades the standard, lowers the standard across the organization where everything gets worse. In a simple exercise that, we've done sometimes is you think about it, it's like, do I see this person here a year from now?
Right.
And if the answer is no, like, I promise you, your future self, if you could go, like, jump into, like, a time machine, have somebody from 5 years into the future come back, like you, and say, here's what you do. They'd say, let that person go immediately. If you don't see them here a year from today, then focus on what needs to happen to move forward today, which means letting them go and figuring out what the next steps look like, even though it's going to be painful.
Yes.
But I promise you it's going to be more painful a year from now, or it's going to be more painful the longer you delay the conversation because you still will have to figure it out. You just kind of let this problem grow and build, and it probably doesn't go away on its own. Or if you think it's going to go on its own where maybe I can push them out, right? Maybe this person can become so miserable that they leave. Well, I promise you, by the time they do that, right, they probably quit your firm 6 months to a year before they even left. And now you're finding, you're picking up the pieces in a way where you're like, oh, shit, I wish I would have let them go when I first had this impulse, right? Because there's always going to be like other problems you'll have to address later on. So it will never be easier than it is today to make the decision you need to make.
That is true. And that is actually a great way to wrap up today.
All right. Until next time.
You've been listening to the Game Changing Attorney podcast with Michael Mogill. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that we can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, Download the first chapter of Michael's book absolutely free at gamechangingattorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot Michael a text at 404-531-7691 and ask him any question you'd like. You might just hear the answer on the next episode. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it will help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on this episode, see the show notes in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.